Jake Morrison walked down the long metal hallway of the USS Defiant. His boots made heavy sounds on the floor with each step. The war was over. After 3 long years of fighting the Zithian Empire, humanity had won. But he just felt tired. Very tired. He had been fighting for so long that he almost forgot what peace felt like. The smell of laser burns and smoke still seemed to follow him everywhere. His hands still shook sometimes when he tried to sleep. The faces of his dead squad members visited him in his dreams every night. Jake reached his small room and sat on. His bed, the mattress was thin and hard, but it was better than sleeping in muddy trenches on alien worlds. He looked at his hands. They were covered in small scars from the war. Each mark told a story of pain and survival. A loud beep came from the wall speaker. Staff Sergeant Morrison, report to Colonel Hayes immediately. The voice belonged to the ship's computer system. Jake stood up and straightened his uniform. Colonel Patricia Hayes was a tough woman who had led them through many battles. She did not call people to her office unless it was important. Jake wondered what she wanted now that the war was over. The colonel's office was bigger than Jake's room, but still small. Maps of different star systems covered the walls. Her desk was neat and organized. Colonel Hayes sat behind it, looking at a datapad. She was a woman in her 50s, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Sit down, Morrison," she said without looking up. Jake sat in the chair across from her desk. He waited quietly. The colonel finished reading and put the datapad down. She looked at him with a serious expression. "The war's over, but we still have work to do," she began. "The Zilithian surrender terms are complicated. They had many slaves from different worlds. Now, we must decide what to do with these people." Jake nodded. He had heard rumors about the Zilithian slave markets. The enemy had captured people from many worlds and forced them to work. It was one of the reasons humanity had fought so hard against them. Each human unit is being assigned former slaves to help them transition back to normal life, the colonel continued. "You are being given responsibility for one of them." Jake felt confused. "Ma'am, I don't understand. What kind of responsibility?" Colonel Hayes picked up another datapad and handed it to him. "Her name is Lyra. She is from a species called the Felonary. Zilithians captured her 5 years ago, when they invaded her homeworld. She has been a slave ever since." Jake looked at the datapad. It showed a picture of a female alien. She had pale blue skin with silver markings that seemed to glow softly. Her eyes were large and dark, filled with sadness. She looked human in many ways, but also different. Beautiful but broken. "What am I supposed to do with her?" Jake asked. "That is up to you," the colonel replied. "According to the surrender terms, she is now your responsibility. You can do whatever you think is best. But remember, she is a living person, not an object." Jake felt sick to his stomach. The idea of owning another person was wrong. It went against everything he believed in. "Ma'am, I can't own a person." "That's not right. I know how you feel, Morrison. But if you refuse, she will be processed through military channels. She might end up in some government facility for years while they figure out what to do with her. At least with you she has a chance at a normal life." Jake looked at the picture again. The alien woman's eyes seemed to stare right at him. She looked scared and alone. He thought about his own loneliness after losing his squad. Maybe they could help each other. "Where is she now?" he asked. "In holding Bay 7. She doesn't speak standard Galactic very well. The Zilithians didn't allow their slaves to learn our language. She's been conditioned to be submissive and obedient. Breaking that conditioning won't be easy." Jake stood up. "I want to see her." The colonel nodded. "I thought you might. Morrison, be careful. She's been through terrible things. It will take time for her to trust anyone again." Jake left the office and walked toward the holding bays. His mind raced with questions. How do you help someone who has been a slave for years? How do you convince them they are free when they don't even know what freedom means? Holding Bay 7 was a small room with basic furniture. There was a bed, a table, and 2 chairs. The walls were plain gray metal. Jake pressed the button to open the door. The alien woman sat on the bed with her back against the wall. She wore a simple gray dress that was too big for her thin frame. When she saw Jake, she quickly stood up and lowered her head. Her whole body trembled. "Hello," Jake said softly. "My name is Jake. I'm here to help you." She didn't look up. She said something in a language he didn't understand. Her voice was quiet and musical, but full of fear. Jake took a step closer, but she backed away until she hit the wall. He stopped and raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "It's okay. Hurt you?" She looked up at him for just a moment. Her dark eyes were filled with terror. Jake realized she expected him to hit her or worse. The thought made him angry at the Zithians, but he kept his voice calm. "You're safe now," he said. "The war is over. Zithians can't hurt you anymore." She didn't understand his words, but something in his tone seemed to calm her slightly. She stopped trembling as much, though she still looked ready to run. Jake sat down in one of the chairs, keeping his distance. "I know you can't understand me yet, but I want you to know something. You are not my slave. You are not my property. You are a free person." The alien woman tilted her head slightly. She seemed confused by his gentle tone. Jake guessed that no one had spoken kindly to her in a very long time. "My name is Jake," he said again, pointing to himself. "Jake." She watched him carefully. After a long moment, she pointed to herself and said something that sounded like Lyra. Jake smiled. "Lyra, that's a beautiful name." For the first time, something that might have been hope flickered in her eyes. It was small and fragile, but it was there. Jake spent the next hour sitting with her in silence. He didn't try to touch her or move closer. He just wanted her to get used to his presence. Sometimes he would say simple words and point to objects in the room. She listened carefully, but didn't respond much. When he finally stood to leave, she looked afraid again. Jake realized she thought he might never come back. "I'll return tomorrow," he said. "Promise." He didn't know if she understood the words, but she seemed to understand the meaning. She nodded slightly. Jake left the holding bay with a heavy heart. He had seen many terrible things during the war, but the broken spirit of this alien woman affected him deeply. He had been hurt in ways that would take a long time to heal. As he walked back to his room, Jake made a decision. He would help Lyra find her freedom, even if it took years. He would be patient and kind. He would show her that not all people were cruel like the Zithians. The war had taken so much from both of them. Maybe together, they could find a way to heal and build something better from the ashes of conflict. Jake looked out a window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, his home. But for now, his mission was here, in this ship, the broken alien woman who needed to remember what it meant to be free. Tomorrow, he would begin the long journey of helping her find herself. Again, and maybe in the process, he would find some peace for his own wounded soul. Jake returned to the holding bay the next morning with a tray of food. He had asked the ship's cook to prepare something simple that might not upset Lyra's stomach. The cook had given him some fruit, bread, and a mild soup. When Jake entered the room, Lyra was sitting in the same spot on the bed. She looked like she had not slept much. Her large dark eyes followed his every movement as he set the tray on the table. "I brought you some food," Jake said softly. He pointed to the tray and then to her. "For you." Lyra looked at the food but did not move. Jake realized she was waiting for permission. The thought made him sad and angry at the same time. He sat down in the chair across from her and picked up a piece of fruit. He took a bite to show it was safe. "It's okay," he said. "You can eat." Still, she did not move. Jake had an idea. He stood up and walked to the door. "I'll be right back," he said. Jake went to find Dr. Susan Carter, the ship's medical officer. He found her in the medical bay organizing supplies. Dr. Carter was a kind woman in her 40s with brown hair and gentle hands. "Jake, good to see you," she said. "I heard about your new responsibility. How is she doing?" "Not well," Jake replied. "She's scared of everything. She won't even eat without permission. I think she might be hurt in ways I can't see." Dr. Carter nodded. The Zithians were known for using mind control devices on their slaves. They would put implants in their brains to make them obedient. I should examine her. Jake and Dr. Carter returned to the holding bay together. When Lyra saw the doctor, She became even more frightened. She pressed herself against the wall and started shaking. "It's okay," Jake said quickly. "She's a doctor. She wants to help you." She showed Lyra her medical scanner and spoke in a calm voice. "I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to check if you're healthy." Lyra looked at Jake with questioning eyes. He nodded and tried to smile reassuringly. Very slowly, Lyra allowed Dr. Carter to examine her. The doctor ran her scanner over Lyra's head. The device beeped several times. Dr. Carter's face grew serious. "Jake, she has neural inhibitors implanted behind her ears. They're designed to suppress her natural abilities and make her more compliant." "Can you remove them?" Jake asked. "It's possible, but it will be dangerous. The surgery could damage her brain if we're not careful, and I don't know much about veterinary anatomy." Jake looked at Lyra, who was watching them with confusion. Could tell they were talking about her, but she didn't understand what they were saying. "We have to try," Jake said. "She can't be truly free with those things in her head." Dr. Carter agreed to research veterinary biology and prepare for the surgery. In the meantime, Jake continued to visit Lyra every day, brought her food, books with pictures, and simple games. He was patient and never pushed her to do anything she didn't want to do. Slowly, Lyra began to trust him. She would eat when he was in the room. She started to repeat simple words that he taught her. Water, food, good, safe. Her voice was beautiful like music. Jake also began to share things about himself. He told her about Earth, about his home in Colorado, about the mountains and snow. He didn't know if she understood, but she listened carefully to every word. One day, Jake found Lyra standing by the small window in her room. She was looking out at the stars with a sad expression. Jake came to stand beside her. "Do you miss your home?" he asked. Lyra turned to look at him. For the first time, she spoke in broken standard Galactic. "Home, gone. Family, gone." Jake felt his heart break. He wanted to comfort her, but he didn't know how. "I'm sorry," he said. "Sorry," she repeated, as if learning a new word. "Jake, sorry too?" Jake was surprised. How did she know he was hurt? "Yes," he said. "I lost my friends in the war. They died fighting." Lyra nodded slowly. "Death, everywhere. Pain, everywhere." They stood together in silence, two broken souls looking out at the vast emptiness of space. Jake realized that maybe they could help each other heal. The next week, Dr. Carter was ready to perform the surgery. Jake held Lyra's hand as Dr. Carter explained what would happen. Lyra was scared, but she trusted Jake enough to go through with it. The surgery took 3 hours. Jake waited outside the medical bay, pacing back and forth. He was more nervous than he had been during any battle. If something went wrong, he would never forgive himself. Finally, Dr. Carter came out. She looked tired but pleased. The surgery was successful. "I removed both inhibitors. She's sleeping now, but she should wake up in a few hours." Jake sat beside Lyra's bed and waited. When she finally opened her eyes, something was different. The dull, empty look was gone. Her eyes were brighter, more alive. "Jake," she said softly. "I'm here," he replied. "How do you feel?" Lyra sat up slowly. She looked around the room with new awareness. "I feel different. Like I was sleeping for a long time, and now I'm awake." Her standard Galactic was much better now. The inhibitors had been blocking not just her natural abilities, but also her ability to learn and think clearly. "What natural abilities?" Jake asked. Lyra looked at him with curiosity. "You don't know about the veterinary? We can sense emotions and thoughts. We can feel what others feel." Jake was amazed. "You can read minds?" "Not exactly read," Lyra said, "but I can sense feelings. Right now, I can feel that you are happy but also worried. You care about me, but you're afraid you might not be able to help me enough." Jake was stunned. Hey. She was right about everything he was feeling. "Is that why you seemed to understand me even when you couldn't speak the language?" Lyra nodded. "Your emotions told me you were kind. The Zithians felt different. They felt cold and cruel. But you feel warm." Over the next few days, Lyra's abilities continued to return. She could sense the emotions of everyone on the ship. She told Jake that most of the crew felt curious about her, but not hostile. Some felt pity, others felt protective. Jake introduced her to other crew members. Chief Petty Officer Danny Rodriguez was a friendly man who brought her books about different planets. Communications specialist Lisa Park taught her more standard galactic words and showed her how to use the ship's computer systems. The crew began to accept Lyra as part of their community. She was quiet and gentle, and she never intruded on anyone's private thoughts. She only sensed emotions, not specific thoughts. One evening, Jake found Lyra sitting in the ship's observation deck. She was looking out at the stars again, but this time she didn't look sad. She looked peaceful. "Are you feeling better?" Jake asked as he sat beside her. "Yes," Lyra said. "For the first time in 5 years, I feel like myself again." "Thank you, Jake." "You don't need to thank me," Jake replied. "Duh! Everyone deserves to be free." Lyra turned to look at him. "I can sense something in you. You carry great sadness. You blame yourself for your friends' deaths." Jake was quiet for a moment. He had never talked about his feelings with anyone. "I was their leader. I should have protected them better." "War is not your fault," Lyra said gently. "Death in war is not your fault. Your friends chose to fight just like you did. They knew the risks." Jake felt tears in his eyes. "How do you know that?" "'Cause I can feel the love you had for them, and I can feel the love they had for you. That love doesn't die with the body. It stays here." She pointed to his heart, and here. She pointed to his head. For the first time since the war ended, Jake felt a little bit of peace. Maybe Lyra was right. Maybe he could forgive himself someday. "We both lost people we cared about," Jake said, "but we're still here. We can still choose to live and be happy." Lyra smiled. It was the first real smile Jake had seen from her. "Yes," she said, "we can choose to live." As they sat together looking at the stars, Jake realized that helping Lyra was also helping him. They were both healing from the war, but they were doing it together. And somehow, that made all the difference. The USS Defiant continued its long journey toward human space. Jake and Lyra spent more time together each day. They would eat meals together, walk through the ship's corridors, and sit in the observation deck watching the stars. Jake was teaching Lyra about human culture, while she shared stories about her home world. "My planet was called Velanara," Lyra said one evening, as they sat together.
"He was covered in crystal forests that sang in the wind."
"The trees were made of living crystal that changed colors with the seasons." Jake tried to imagine such a beautiful place. "What did you do there before the war?" "I was a healer and a teacher," Lyra replied. "My people valued knowledge and peace above all things. We had no armies, no weapons. We thought our peaceful nature would protect us." Jake could hear the pain in her voice. "The Zithians attacked without warning." Lyra nodded. "It came from the sky like a storm. Crystal cities shattered under their weapons. Those who survived were taken as slaves. I was working in a hospital when they captured me. I was trying to help the wounded." Jake felt anger rise in his chest. The Zithians had destroyed an entire peaceful civilization just to take slaves. "I'm sorry your people had to suffer like that." "The Zithians didn't understand us," Lyra continued. "They thought our empathic abilities made us weak. They tried to break our spirits by separating us from each other. They knew that Velanari grows sick when we are alone for too long." Jake was beginning to understand why Lyra had been so damaged. Her people were naturally social and empathic. Being isolated and abused would have been especially cruel for someone like her. "Are there other Velanari survivors?" Jake asked. "I don't know," Lyra said sadly. "The Zithians scattered us across their empire. I haven't seen another of my kind." In 3 years, Jake made a mental note to ask Colonel Hayes about other Velanari survivors. Maybe there were others who needed help like Lyra did. As the days passed, Jake noticed that Lyra was becoming stronger. She walked with more confidence. She laughed at his jokes. She even started helping in the ship's medical bay, where Dr. Carter was amazed by her natural healing abilities. "She has an incredible gift," Dr. Carter told Jake one day. She can sense illness and injury in ways our medical scanners can't detect. She helped me diagnose a problem with crewman Johnson that I would have missed. Jake was proud of Lyra's progress, but he also noticed that she still had bad days. Sometimes she would wake up from nightmares, crying and afraid. Other times she would become very quiet and withdrawn. Dr. Carter explained that this was normal for trauma survivors. Healing isn't a straight line, she said. There will be good days and bad days. The important thing is that the good days are becoming more frequent. Jake found that he was also healing. Talking to Lyra about his own pain helped him process his guilt over losing his squad. Her empathic abilities allowed her to understand his feelings in a way that other humans couldn't. "You carry too much guilt," she told him one night, after he had a nightmare about his fallen friends. "I can feel it eating away at you like a disease." "They trusted me to lead them," Jake replied. "I failed them." "No," Lyra said firmly. "You led them with courage and honor. I can sense the memories you carry. Your friends respected you. They followed you because they believed in you, not because they had to." Jake wiped tears from his eyes. "How can you be so sure?" "Because I can feel the love in your memories of them. Love and respect go together. Your friends knew the risks when they chose to fight. Their deaths are not your fault." These conversations helped Jake sleep better at night. The nightmares became less frequent. He started to remember his fallen friends with love instead of just pain. One morning, the ship's alarm sounded. Jake and Lyra rushed to the bridge to see what was happening. Colonel Hayes was studying a screen that showed a damaged ship drifting in space. "It's a Velinary vessel," the communications officer reported. "They're sending a distress signal."
Go, Jake.
Felt Lyra tense beside him. Her empathic abilities were picking up something from the ship. "There are survivors," she said quietly. "I can sense them. They're hurt and scared." Colonel Hayes looked at Lyra with interest. "How many?" Lyra closed her eyes and concentrated. "Be 20 or 30. Some are very weak. They need medical help quickly. We're not supposed to deviate from our course," the colonel said. "But I'm not going to leave people to die in space." Us Defiant moved closer to the damaged Velinary ship. Jake volunteered to lead the rescue team. Lyra asked to come with him. "I can help communicate with them," she said. "They'll be afraid of humans. But if they see me, they'll know you're trying to help." Jake agreed. They put on spacesuits and took a shuttle to the damaged vessel. The ship was badly damaged from weapons fire. Parts of it were torn open to space. Inside, they found the survivors huddled in a small section that still had air. They were thin and weak, clearly suffering from hunger and injuries. When they saw Jake and the other human rescuers, they shrank back in fear. But then they saw Lyra. The reaction was immediate and emotional. The survivors rushed to her, touching her hands and speaking rapidly in their musical language. Many of them were crying. Lyra spoke to them in their own language, explaining that the humans were there to help. She told them about Jake and how he had freed her from slavery. Slowly, the survivors began to trust the rescue team. Jake watched Lyra work with her people. She was gentle and compassionate, helping to calm their fears and treat their injuries. For the first time since he had met her, she looked truly happy. The rescue took several hours. The survivors were brought aboard the USS Defiant and given medical care. Dr. Carter worked with Lyra to treat their injuries and malnutrition. Among the survivors was an elderly Velinary named Kethra. She had been a council member on their home world before the invasion. She was suspicious of the humans at first, but Lyra convinced her that they could be trusted. "You speak strangely of these humans," Kethra said to Lyra in their own language. "You sound almost fond of them." "They saved me," Lyra replied, "especially Jake. He showed me kindness when I had forgotten what kindness felt like." Kethra studied Jake carefully. "He is the one who owns you." "No," Lyra said firmly. "He freed me. He taught me that I could choose my own path. He never treated me as property." This conversation was translated for Jake later. He was pleased that Lyra understood her freedom. But he also noticed that she seemed torn between staying with him and rejoining her people. Over the next few days, the Velinary survivors shared their stories. They had been slaves on different worlds, but had managed to escape during the chaos at the end of the war. They were trying to find other survivors and establish a new colony. Lyra spent hours with them, reconnecting with her culture and language. Jake could see how much it meant to her to be with her own people again. It also made him realize how much he had come to care for her. "She belongs with us," Cathara said to Jake one day. "She is one of our most gifted healers. Her people need her." Okay, Jake nodded. "I know. I want what's best for her, even if that means she leaves." "You would let her go?" Cathara asked, surprised. "She's not mine to keep," Jake replied. "She's free to choose her own path." This answer seemed to confuse Cathara. She had expected Jake to claim ownership of Lyra. The fact that he was willing to let her go made her reconsider her opinion of humans. That night, Jake sat alone in the observation deck. He'd been dreading this moment, but he knew it was coming. Soon, Lyra would have to choose between staying with him and going with her people. Lyra found him there, sitting quietly in the dark. She could sense his sadness and conflict. "You're thinking about letting me go," she said softly. Jake didn't deny it. "Your people need you. You're happy with them in a way I've never seen before." "I'm happy to see my people again," Lyra admitted. "But I'm also happy with you. You saved me, Jake. You showed me how to be free." "I didn't save you," Jake said. "You saved yourself. I just helped a little." Lyra sat beside him. "We saved each other. You helped me heal from my trauma, and I helped you heal from yours." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Both of them knew that difficult choices lay ahead, but for now, they were content to simply be together. Two damaged souls who had found healing in each other's company. The future was uncertain, but they had learned that even in the darkest times, connection and compassion could light the way forward. The days following the rescue were filled with difficult conversations. Lyra spent most of her time with the other Velinary survivors, learning about their plans and sharing her own experiences. Jake tried to give her space, but he couldn't help. Feeling lonely without her constant company, Cathara had been watching Jake carefully. She noticed how he looked at Lyra when he thought no one was watching. She also noticed how Lyra's eyes would search for Jake even when she was surrounded by her own people. "Tell me about your intentions with our healer," Cathara said to Jake one afternoon. They were in the ship's cafeteria, and she had approached his table where he sat alone. Jake looked up from his untouched food. "I don't have any intentions. She's free to make her own choices." "That is not what I asked," Cathara said, sitting down across from him. "What do you want to happen?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. "I want her to be happy. If that means going with you to build a new colony, then that's what should happen." "And what about your happiness?" Cathara asked. "My happiness doesn't matter as much as her freedom," Jake replied. Cathara studied his face. "You love her." Jake felt his cheeks grow warm. "I care about her. She's been through enough. She deserves to choose her own path without pressure from me." "Love is not pressure," Cathara said. "Love is honesty." "Have you told her how you feel?" "No," Jake admitted. "It wouldn't be fair. She's still recovering from trauma. She might feel obligated to stay with me out of gratitude." Cathara leaned back in her chair. "You humans are strange. Among my people, we share our feelings openly. How can someone make a real choice without knowing all the facts?" Jake had never thought about it that way. Maybe he was being unfair by hiding his feelings. But before he could respond, the ship's alarm sounded again. Colonel Hayes' voice came. Over the speaker, "All crew to battle stations. We have detected hostile ships approaching." Jake ran to his post in the engineering section. Through the ship's communication system, he could hear the bridge crew reporting that 3 Zithian ships were approaching fast. They were smaller vessels, probably raiders who hadn't accepted the surrender. They must have followed our energy signature from the rescue. Jake heard someone say, the USS Defiant was a strong ship, but it was carrying many injured Velinary survivors who couldn't fight. Jake worked quickly to boost power to the shields and weapons. The battle was fierce, but short. The Zithian ships attacked without warning, but the human crew was well-trained and experienced. 2 of the enemy ships were destroyed quickly. The 3rd ship managed to beam boarding parties onto the USS Defiant before it was destroyed. Jake heard the security alerts echoing through the corridors. Zithian soldiers were loose on the ship. Jake grabbed a weapon and ran toward the medical bay, where the Velinary survivors were being treated. He was worried that the Zithians might try to recapture their former slaves. When he reached the medical bay, he found chaos. Several Zithian soldiers had broken in and were shooting at anyone who moved. Dr. Carter was hiding behind an overturned table with some of the wounded. Velinary Jake saw Lyra across the room. She was trying to protect an injured Velinary child. But two Zithian soldiers were advancing on her. Their weapons were raised and ready to fire. Without thinking, Jake charged into the room, shot one of the soldiers, but the other turned toward him. Jake dove to the side as laser bolts burned the air where he had been standing. The Zithian soldier took aim at Jake again, but suddenly the alien screamed and dropped his weapon. Lyra had her hand on the soldier's head, and Jake could see that. She was using her empathic abilities to overwhelm him with emotion. "I'm making him feel all the pain he caused others," Lyra said through gritted teeth. "All the fear and suffering of his victims." The Zithian soldier collapsed, his mind unable to handle the flood of emotions. But the effort had drained Lyra. She swayed on her feet, looking pale and weak. More Zithian soldiers appeared in the doorway. Jake moved to protect Lyra, but he was outnumbered. One of the soldiers fired at him, and the laser bolt hit him in the shoulder. Jake fell to the ground, his weapon skittering away across the floor. The Zithian soldiers advanced. Their weapons aimed at Jake and Lyra. Jake tried to get up, but his wounded shoulder wouldn't support his weight. This was it. They were going to die, but then Lyra did something incredible. She reached out with her empathic abilities and connected with every Velinary in the room. Jake felt a strange tingling sensation as their combined psychic energy flowed through the air. The Zithian soldiers suddenly stopped moving. Their faces went blank, and they dropped their weapons. The combined empathic power of the Velinary had overwhelmed their minds, leaving them helpless. Security teams arrived moments later and captured the disabled soldiers. The attack was over, but Jake was badly injured. Dr. Carter immediately began treating his wound while Lyra held his hand. "You saved me," Lyra said, tears streaming down her face. "You risked your life to protect me." "Of course I did," Jake replied weakly. "I couldn't let them hurt you." "Why?" Lyra asked. "Why would you die for me?" Jake looked into her eyes. Cathar's words echoed in his mind. "Maybe it was time for honesty. 'Cause I love you," he said softly. Lyra's eyes widened. "You love me?" "Yes," Jake said. "I've loved you for weeks now, but I didn't want to pressure you. You deserve to make your own choices without feeling obligated." To me, Lyra leaned down and gently kissed his forehead. "You foolish human. Don't you know that I can sense your emotions? Known how you felt for a long time." Jake was confused. "Then why didn't you say anything?" "'Cause I was afraid," Lyra admitted. "I was afraid that my feelings weren't real. Thought maybe I only cared for you because you saved me. I needed time to understand my own heart." "Now?" Jake asked. Lyra smiled through her tears. "Now I know. I love you too, Jake Morrison. Not because you saved me, but because of who you are. You're kind and brave and selfless. You make me want to be a better person." Dr. Carter finished treating Jake's wound. "You'll be fine," she said. "The laser missed all the important parts. You'll have a scar, but you'll heal completely." Over the next few days, Jake recovered from his injury. The captured Zithian soldiers were interrogated, revealed that they had been part of a rogue group that refused to accept the surrender. They had been hunting for escaped slaves to recapture and sell. The attack had changed things for everyone on the ship. The Velinary survivors realized how dangerous it still was for them in space. The human crew had seen how valuable the Velinary could be as allies, with their empathic abilities proving useful in combat. Cathara approached Jake and Lyra as they sat together in the observation deck. Jake's arm was in a sling, but he was feeling much better. "I owe you an apology," Cathara said to Jake. "I misjudged you and your people. You risked everything to protect us, even though we are not your responsibility. We're all people trying to survive in a dangerous galaxy," Jake replied. "We should help each other when we can." "I have been thinking about our plans," Cathara continued. "We were going to establish a colony far from human space, but perhaps that is not the wisest choice. We could use allies like you." Lyra looked hopeful. What are you suggesting? A joint colony, Cathera said. Humans and Velinari working together. Your people have strength and technology. Our people have healing abilities and empathic gifts. Together, we could build something better than either of us could create alone. Felt excitement growing in his chest. That sounds like a wonderful idea. I'm just a soldier. I don't make decisions about colonies. Perhaps not, Cathera said with a smile. But I think your Colonel Hayes might be interested in our proposal, especially after seeing how well we fought together against the Zithians. Later that evening, Jake and Lyra were alone again. They talked about the future and what it might hold for them. I want to be with you, Lyra said.
Yeah.
But I also want to help my people rebuild. I feel torn between two paths. Maybe you don't have to choose, Jake suggested. Maybe we can walk both paths together. Lyra smiled. A human and a Velinari, building a new world together. It sounds impossible. The best things usually do, Jake replied, pulling her close with his good arm as they sat together watching the stars. Both of them felt hope for the first time in a long while.
Ow!
The future was still uncertain, but they would face it together. And somehow, that made all the difference in the galaxy. 2 weeks later, the USS Defiant reached the outer colonies of human space. Jake's shoulder had healed well, and he was back to full duty. The joint colony proposal had been sent to both human and Velinari leadership through long-range communications. Colonel Hayes called Jake to her office on a bright morning. When he arrived, she was reading a message on her datapad with a pleased expression. Good news, Morrison, she said. The Colonial Council has approved the joint settlement project. They're very interested in working with the Velinari especially. After reading our reports about their abilities, Jake felt his heart race with excitement. What about the Velinari? Have they agreed? Cathera received word from the Velinari Council in exile yesterday. They've given their blessing for the project. It seems your girlfriend made quite an impression on them with her reports. Jake smiled at hearing Lyra called his girlfriend. They had made their relationship official after he recovered from his injury. So it's really happening? It's really happening, Colonel Hayes confirmed. There's just one small problem. You're still in the military, Morrison. You have 2 years left on your service contract. Jake's smile faded. He had forgotten about his military obligations. What does that mean for the colony? Well, you have a choice to make, the colonel said. You can fulfill your remaining service time, which would mean assignment to Earth or another military base. Or you can accept early discharge and join the colony as a civilian consultant. What's the catch? Jake asked. He knew there had to be one. If you take early discharge, you give up your military benefits and pension. You'd also be starting over as a civilian with no guaranteed income. Jake thought about this carefully. Military life had been good to him, but he had found something more important than security. He had found love and purpose. I'll take the early discharge, he said without hesitation. Colonel Hayes smiled. I thought you might say that. I've already prepared the paperwork. But Jake, are you sure about this? Starting a colony is dangerous work. There are no guarantees it will succeed. I'm sure, Jake replied. This is what I want to do with my life. That evening, Jake found Lyra in the ship's garden bay. It was a small room where the crew grew fresh vegetables and flowers.
Lyra was
Tending to some earth roses that Dr. Carter had been growing. They're beautiful, Lyra said as Jake approached. I've never seen flowers like these before. The colors are so bright and cheerful. Wait until you see a whole garden full of them, Jake said. We can plant them on our new world. Lyra turned to look at him. Our new world? Jake took her hands in his. I talked to Colonel Hayes today. The colony has been approved by both governments. I'm leaving the military to help start it. Lyra's eyes filled with tears of joy. Really? We can build a new home together? That's what you want, Jake said. I know it won't be easy. Building a colony from nothing is hard work. There will be dangers and challenges. I'm not afraid of hard work, Lyra replied. And I'm not afraid of danger, as long as we face it together. Jake pulled her into his arms and kissed her gently. Then let's build ourselves a future. The next few weeks passed quickly. The USS Defiant arrived at the colonial staging area, where ships and supplies were being gathered for the new settlement. Jake was amazed by how much support the project had received. There were 3 human ships loaded with construction equipment, medical supplies, and food. 2 veterinary vessels carried surviving families and their cultural artifacts. Scientists from both species were working together to plan the colony's layout and infrastructure. Jake was assigned to lead the engineering team, responsible for building the colony's power systems and transportation networks. Lyra would serve as the chief medical officer, working with both human and veterinary doctors to establish the colony's healthcare system. The chosen world was called Haven. It was a beautiful planet with blue oceans, green continents, and 2 small moons. The atmosphere was perfect for both humans and veterinary, and there were no dangerous native life forms. On the day of departure, Jake stood on the bridge of the colony ship, watching Haven grow larger on the screen. Lyra stood beside him, her hand in his around them. Colonists from both species worked together, preparing for landing. "Are you nervous?" Lyra asked. A little, Jake admitted, "but mostly I'm excited. We're about to make history." "The first joint human veterinary colony," Lyra said with pride. "Our children will grow up in a world where both species are equal partners." Jake squeezed her hand. "Our children?" Lyra blushed. "Well, someday, if you want them."
I
want everything with you," Jake said softly. "A home, a family, a lifetime of adventures." The landing went smoothly. The colonists set up temporary shelters while the engineering teams began construction of permanent buildings. Jake worked 18-hour days setting up power generators and communication systems. Lyra was equally busy establishing the medical center, treating colonists who were injured during construction. Her empathic abilities made her an excellent doctor, able to sense pain and illness that other doctors might miss in the evenings. Jake and Lyra would walk together through the growing settlement. They watched humans and veterinary working side by side, building something new and beautiful. "Look at them," Lyra said one evening as they watched a human engineer and a veterinary builder discussing plans for a new warehouse. A year ago, most of these people had never seen someone from the other species. Now they're friends and colleagues. "That's what happens when people get to know each other," Jake replied. "Fear comes from ignorance. Understanding comes from working together toward common goals." 3 months after landing, the colony had grown into a real town. There were homes, shops, schools, and a hospital. The main street was lined with trees, from both Earth and Velinara, creating a unique hybrid landscape. Jake and Lyra had built their own home on a hill overlooking the town. It was small but comfortable, with a garden where they grew vegetables and flowers from both worlds. One evening, as they sat on their porch watching the sunset, Jake reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "Lyra," he said, getting down on one knee. "A year ago, I was a broken soldier who thought his life was over. Then I met you, and you showed me that even the darkest times can lead to something beautiful." Lyra gasped as Jake opened the box to reveal a ring. It was made from a combination of earth metals and veterinary crystals, symbolizing the union of their 2 worlds. "Will you marry me?" Jake asked. "Will you be my partner in building this new world?" Tears streamed down Lyra's face as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will marry you." Jake slipped the ring onto her finger and stood to kiss her. Round them, the sounds of the colony drifted up from the valley below. Children playing, adults talking and laughing, the hum of machinery building their future. "I love you, Lyra," Jake said. "I love you too, Jake Morrison," she replied. "Thank you for showing me what freedom really means." 6 months later, Jake and Lyra were married in the colony's central plaza. It was the first human veterinary wedding in history. Colonel Hayes, who had come to visit the colony, officiated the ceremony. The entire population of Haven attended the wedding. Humans and veterinary celebrated together, sharing food, music, and traditions from both cultures. It was a perfect symbol of what the colony represented. Dr. Carter served as Lyra's maid of honor, while Danny Rodriguez was Jake's best man. Even Cathara was there, smiling proudly as she watched the healer she had once doubted find true happiness. During the reception, Jake made a speech to the gathered colonists. "A year and a half ago, Lyra and I were both broken by war," he said. We had lost everything we cared about. But we found each other, and together we learned to heal. We learned that love is stronger than hatred, that understanding is stronger than fear. He looked out at the crowd of humans and Velinari who had become their friends and neighbors. This colony is proof that different species can not only coexist but thrive together. We are building something here that has never existed before. Truly integrated society where everyone is valued for who they are, not what species they belong to. The crowd cheered and applauded. Jake pulled Lyra close and kissed her as fireworks lit up the sky above Haven. 2 years later, Jake and Lyra welcomed their first child. The baby was healthy and beautiful, with her mother's luminescent skin markings and her father's bright blue eyes. She was the first human-Velinari hybrid ever born, and she represented the future of both species, as Jake held his daughter for the first time. He thought about the long journey that had brought him to this moment. The war, the pain, the healing, and finally the love that had made everything worthwhile. "What should we name her?" Lyra asked from her hospital bed. Jake looked down at his daughter's perfect face. "Hope," he said. "Her name is Hope." Outside the hospital window, the colony of Haven stretched toward the horizon. Ships from both human and Velinari space arrive regularly, bringing new colonists who wanted to be part of this grand experiment in cooperation. The war was over, but the real victory was just beginning. Jake and Lyra had proven that even the greatest differences could be overcome with patience, understanding, and love. Their daughter would grow up in a world where such differences were not barriers, but strengths.